Okay, I should be able to. Okay, all right. So I think recording is on. We're good there. And I'll open up our chat box. And okay. So while I have volunteered to record and take notes, I will request someone else, one of you professionals, to go ahead and take the lead of the meeting to get the conversation started. Who would that be?
She's on mute.
Yep.
Lori, are you on mute?
I'll just start. I met with my director just yesterday through Zoom, and I was expecting to hear from her that we would be leaning probably to distant learning in the fall, because it seems to feel like that's what is out there and that's what other people are thinking. And she surprised me. She said she really feels that we will be having some type of programming on site. And so it'll probably be a combination, and it'll look different, but she is a little bit optimistic about having on site. So we talked a little bit about that. So I was interested in the hybridization, the hybrid programming here. So, that's kind of where I was leading to get feedback from other schools and if they're hearing anything from the directors and what you're thinking of.
Well, we in District 199, we haven't heard anything either. We were just kind of, they kind of told us to kind of have 3 different plans, like a normal plan, the hybrid plan, and then a distance learning plan, and just, but they did say to focus most of our time on that distance learning. So that's what we're doing right now. We still bounce ideas off, like what it could look like as a hybrid. And so I don't know. I'm just interested. It just feels so up in the air that it's just hard to, I like to have something to just focus on.
Yeah. Lori, I was going to ask you, I'm also surprised that your director is realistically considering that there will be an in-person component. Do you guys talk at all about what that means? Like, are we talking about children coming in or only parents? What are we talking about?
No, she felt that she was thinking that there's a strong possibility that we might have programming in. She said that it would look like really quite different. The numbers, we're going to decrease the numbers on every class. She talked about when families enter our building, they congregate, kind of in front of class doors, and that we would probably put things down on the floor, like grocery stores are, the 6 foot distancing. We talked about where, keeping coats and things out of the rooms. The only thing that confused me is she and maybe she's just being optimistic, but she said, still thinking of the 10 people per room. And, we have early childhood teacher, parent ed, and an assistant. So that's 3 right there. So we're thinking, that only allows really for 3 families to be in one class if you count a child and a parent. So she said, she's hoping for 15. But I don't know, I know our school district is also, looking at classrooms and how they're going to do it by spreading desks apart and all these things. So I don't know, maybe her thinking is going to change next week, but I was just surprised. I was surprised that was even part of the discussion. I just assumed that we probably wouldn't be meeting in. And then of course the other thing is I'm responsible for helping to put together the course catalog that's mailed out to families, and she said there will not be any course catalog. Well, of course not, because we can't know what we're offering. So then that made me a little concerned about how are we going to market here, and how are we going to get families to sign up? So yeah, just all those things came up, just so it's real fresh on my mind because I just met with her. And I was wondering, you know, if anybody else has met with their directors and had conversations like this.
We've been talking about, you know, planning for the fall and the 3 different options. And, you know, my thing is, I just want to be prepared. I want to have everything laid out because I feel like as we looked at other districts when this first happened, like if you got your information out, like, and we're ready to go, we just acted like we were just, of course we're going to be included, but like there were districts who were furloughed or let go. And so, you know, my biggest thing is I just want to have a plan, whether it's right or wrong, have a plan laid out so the district knows that we are ready to go for the fall. And I think that it's so nice to be meeting with all of you to look at that piece. So, you know, we've talked about the classic, you know, and then the hybrid and distance learning. And I think we are going to look at doing some online classes. Our district told us no, that we couldn't do any Zoom. We can't do Zoom, but we have Google Meet. So we're looking at including that, but looking at like short class times, you know, maybe 30 minutes with parents and how do we do that? So the one thing that we talked about, and because we're like, get out of the box, like just anything, what, you know, what are all the ideas? And so we talked about with our teachers is having parents sign up if they want to participate, and maybe there's going to be some set classes and maybe doing shorter, like 4-week classes. You just have to sign up for that. So then you meet on a certain time, certain day, but small online distance learning. But then we talked about the hybrid, but that, you know, maybe you would come in, you know, one day or every other week or something, and maybe they're short and they're not there very long and the whole cleaning. But we talked about the possibility of having families sign up, and then there's all these options during the week. There's going to be story time at 10 a.m. with Laura every day, or there's a parent educator and she's going to be talking on Thursday about potty training. There's going to be a parent educator on Monday who's going to be talking about this topic, and then letting that, like, only so many people can sign up and go in, but that there would be a lot of different options for families during the week. Now, the hard part is it doesn't build the relationships that we all treasure so much. But we thought at least this would be giving families, like, they could hear a story, or they could do song time and the name song, you know, in a group, and it would be, they could kind of pick and choose. Because that, I don't know about you guys, but we've found that we do Seesaw, and families, they can't get on there the day of the class at that time, but they have throughout the week been able to go on, see the ideas from the parent educators, early childhood teachers. And so I don't even know if this is feasible to even, you know, orchestrate, but I would love to just hear ideas like that other districts are looking at.
I think that sounds like a great idea. I feel like right now, when this whole thing was took everybody by surprise, that a lot of the parents have just needed us to be like a support group for them. But maybe knowing that this is going to continue, they're going to be able to commit to a class and a time and kind of just really get into it. Whereas right now, I feel like a lot of them are just hanging on, and they just need us to be there to say, you're going to make it, and, and we're here. So, but I think that, I mean, I feel like they've got they want to, just the ability to be able to make that commitment to come.
And I want to try to be really clear with our district too, that, you know, what we're doing is educational. We're still going to be using the ESAPs, like, and incorporating all of those pieces, so that I think that we're essential, And I want everybody in our whole district to believe that also. So just trying to be really clear about, as I plan and as we plan as a whole district, I don't want to forget about the educational piece, just like K-12 does.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know what your guys' thoughts have been.
So I'm Christy from Rosemount, Apple Valley, Egan. I'm trying to get a handle on thinking about a hybrid model, and honestly, I am not seeing how we put toddlers of any number in a room together and expect them not to touch others, or and will staff be wearing masks? And if we're all wearing masks and it's their first school experience, are we unintentionally setting up that it's this fearful place? Those are my thoughts. It doesn't mean I have answers. So in my mind, I'm thinking distance, just like you're talking about, Deborah, but in my own distance learning Zoom class, it's taken, with new people, so much time to develop that relationship and to really offer those educational pieces that parents can grab onto, that, the one and dones, I'm just not sure, for me as a practitioner, are something that would be a match for me. Because it just takes that extra time now. Not in person, it takes time, but over a screen, it even takes more time to develop those relationships with people that, like, I have people I've never met and we have a strong relationship, but it took 9 weeks, right? Like, so those are just my thoughts.
Yeah. It feels like it's going to be hard to reach new families with the distance piece in place, just because I feel like people that already have that relationship with us are going to be the ones that want to sign up.
And we've even found that those people who we had a relationship with, kind of when push comes to shove and they have other stuff going on, ECFE is what drops off. Some of them might not come to our group, but we've offered one-on-one sessions with families, and we alternate between myself and our early childhood person. Sometimes the people will take advantage of that one-on-one time and not the group.
Okay.
But what's been interesting is that just, the people that you thought were super connected and were going to be there forever, when this came, they're like, we're done. And there are other people where we've had declining interest in our Zoom classes or the one-on-one sessions. But we have a family literacy program, and this week, 2 new families who have not done one thing since this whole thing started tried to get on Zoom. And we don't know, like, I wish I knew what we did different. They decided they wanted to try it, but they're, of course, family literacy families. They're challenged, and they couldn't get on Zoom with the audio. They kept clicking. What we finally realized, they clicked cancel instead of join with internet audio. So, they were almost there after 8 weeks, and then they weren't. So we got to wave at them. But I have found that so interesting, is like the things that worked before, your diehard veterans that were always there, like, that's not a guarantee anymore. So I feel like I have no idea who will do anything in the fall.
I'm going to jump in just because I only have about 10 more minutes before I have to leave. And I just want to say thank you for sharing, because it really is getting me thinking. And we're having our planning meetings start next week in our district, early childhood. And much like the rest of you, we're looking at having plan A, B, and C, and how do we succeed with each of those plans and have them mapped out and ready. I personally think we are struggling somewhat with how to market. I don't have a lot of good ideas on how to successfully do anything face-to-face or have families on site. But the things that we've been starting to talk about reflect some of the things you've already shared. What I do want to say about the whole concern we all have for building relationships, my experience in the last 2 months that was successful, surprisingly, we do shorter sessions for parents with birth to 5-month-olds in Robbinsdale, and those are the classes I teach in the spring, and they're short sessions. So the new baby classes were scheduled to start the week we went to distance learning. So many of us have reported that those classes that we had been meeting with and they had been seeing each other face to face since fall, those carried on quite successfully. Of course, give or take the technological challenges that families can have, even if things are working well one week, the next week there's Wi-Fi challenges, so there's those sort of things. And so most of what I did in the last 2 months was working with parents of infants who I had never met. And of course, because it was infants, I elected to not do circle time and some of those things. But what worked well initially was because I had no relationship with these families, they're new to ECFE, many of them first-time parents. I think what helped is that I reached out personally and called each of those families that first week and just said, this is the situation we're dealing with. We're trying to find the best way to, and really set them up to invite participation, invite the connection and relationship building, and then, hey, are you willing to give this a try with me? And it was all of my parents with infants classes combined to meet once a week via Google Meet is how I set it up. And then what worked well, and again, this may not work well for every kind of class. This was a non-separating, obviously, parents with small infants. So I think, it was easier for them to participate and be on a screen. Some had older children. So of course they would come and go in the session as they were able. But I would send ahead of time an email with some what would be circle time songs and kind of the brain science behind that, or why it's important to have those serve and return interactions with your baby. I would offer some parent-child developmental activities, and then some content and reflection questions. And it actually worked surprisingly well then to gather them as a group, knowing this was our focus. And through the course of the 9 weeks, that group actually bonded. And it was a beautiful thing to hear them say, even though they had never met each other, they successfully made these connections and felt part of a community. So I think it is possible. But again, I realize that that's parents with infants, so it's a little bit different than our, separating classes or parents with toddlers. So I personally can't imagine doing face-to-face on-site classes with parents with infants. And I also want to just echo what somebody else had shared, that I don't think a good first impression would be, especially for a toddler, to come into a building and have everybody with masks. So if we can successfully offer something on site, I think some of the relationship building and connecting needs to happen first, and have those toddlers see our faces without masks, establish some, which would maybe help ease them into some kind of face-to-face on-site experience. So I too think in our district, we're looking at those 3 plans and like, what can we be offering, ongoingly each week for parents to jump in and out of, like topic-based drop-in sessions, or access to story and circle time videos that they can watch at home. And then we're still figuring out how to best have classes, if you will.
Mhm.
So thank you. I just wanted to give input on some of the things that have worked and some of the things that we're starting to think about, but we're not yet in the throes of planning. Next week we'll be diving in as a team to figure out some of those pieces. So thank you for your input. This is so valuable to be able to talk with people in other programs.
And one thing I would suggest is that, Carly, as you're speaking about the fact that you will be talking with your team next week, and I think other people are in similar situations where they are starting to become more concrete about their planning, that if you guys like it, this kind of collaboration and brainstorming, that we could come back, say, for example, next Friday. You guys could bring your ideas that have already been discussed, because obviously you won't decide everything in one meeting. You know, it'll probably take a couple sessions of that. So then you can like learn from each other and bring back ideas and then make it more concrete for each of your districts. So, you know, this collaboration, I think, would work out really, really well. I would imagine, for each of you to bring your ideas that are already been floating around and then bring back something that you learned from here and then make a more concrete plan. And I really like that thought you had about the precluding in-person classes with the online getting to know, even for the little children. I know, you know, I'm the least informed about from all of you, but what I have seen in St. Paul, for example, because I work with them a little bit more closely. They've done a lot with the online videos with for the little children, the 2s and 3s, I would imagine. And so seeing your faces, like you said, without the masks, would definitely help out. And that would, I think, be a very good suggestion for everyone as the district directors are thinking about having the in-person classes. That might be a really good way to set that up for success.
You know, just a thought that comes to mind, and I totally agree and understand the afraid of the mask. I just wonder if we're going to be a little bit used to the mask by then.
That too. Yeah, by then.
If that's going to be a way of life, and it won't be so fearful or strange.
Yeah, that occurred to me too, that, you know, it is becoming more the norm. And just in my own interactions, which of course have been very limited, but at the grocery store, other places where you're socially distanced and you're looking at each other, but you can't see each other's mouth, I've found myself starting to say, I am smiling, you know, to let people know that my nonverbals, even though you can't see, here I'm smiling at you, or, you know, things like that. So there are norms being created. And toddlers, I think they need to see our whole face, and to develop relationship and become comfortable. So yeah, certainly maybe it won't be as scary as we anticipate. And I think building relationships is harder to do when you can only make eye contact. So.
Has anyone looked into doing some outdoor classes? You know, we've got one teacher who's just so passionate about outside classes. So we were trying a nature class on Wednesday afternoons this last semester. And, but her and I have been talking, like, you know, maybe at the beginning of the year when the weather is a little bit better, like maybe to develop some of those relationships, you start the class outside. Then, you know, if you have to go to distance learning, like just trying to find some creative ways to build those relationships. Has anybody looked at that or talked about that yet?
Good idea.
We in Wilmer, we tentatively have one outdoor activity tentatively we're thinking of for in the fall, for September. A pair that used to work has a garden, a very large garden center type thing. And so we do tentatively have that on our schedule. You know, and I'm kind of thinking I will still limit it to 10, which like you said is 10 families, could be but so, you know, we do have that kind of planned. We I talked about, there was another one I had tentatively talked about too and stuff. The weather's so iffy here though, you know, like it's so hard to know what the weather, you know, September I think can be kind of okay. I also do all the early childhood screening, and so I'm on a little bit of a back burner with that as well. And so I don't know how many classes I will be able to offer in September if I have to get caught up on screening. So, you know, so, but I like the idea of the outdoor thing. I feel like that would be a way to maybe do some in-person classes because you'd be outside.
Mm-hmm.
We had talked about our books, blocks, and balls event.
Yeah. Oh, yep, we did have
Kind
that
of
one.
some smaller, like on a, usually it's a bigger scale public event, but we were thinking that maybe we could even take it to neighborhoods so that we could keep it on a smaller scale, that we would bring it to them.
Oh.
Yes.
That was one thing that we talked about, because we also had would have a big fire station event in October that we had like 700 people come to. And so we're trying to, you know, figure out, could we bring the fire engine to different neighborhoods? Monday is North Side, you know, it's, but it really pushes us to, all of us, doesn't it, to think outside the box. Oh.
But I mean, this almost, I don't know, this almost sounds fun. Maybe it's not when you're actually doing the work. But
you know, I think I was telling my supervisor today too, like, I think this spring online stuff's been hard because we haven't been able to, we've had to do it from home. So there's limited access to materials and stuff. Whereas I think if in the fall, if at least we can be in the classroom, have access to materials, you know, even, you know, I know we had a parent advisory meeting a couple weeks ago and they talked even like, you know, even if you can, like usually I do like an art type class, like if you send home the projects home that they can do type thing, you know. So I think there's a little piece that would be a lot easier if we could be in the classroom with access to materials and if we have to do kind of the hybrid type thing, that maybe thinking outside the box, there might be a way to somehow do that and stuff. But it's hard when you're at home and you just have what you brought home the last 2 days that you had to get your stuff out. And so
we had a teacher talk about, you know, if we can get into the buildings, is, you know, maybe there's a short little class and it's in the housekeeping area and the teacher is playing with the dolls and the food, and then the next week it's in the block area, and, you know, trying to use materials that are there, but also like materials maybe you can get at home. And so maybe in the block area you're stacking, you know, soup cans, but at least the teacher is in that school environment so that, you know, when we get to that point where we can be back in the classroom, those little ones have at least seen the different areas, the learning areas. And
that's a great idea too.
Yeah.
Excellent. These are good ideas, guys.
I was just going to mention, we offered a nature class last year, all year. And we had the philosophy, there's no bad weather, just poor clothing.
Yes, I was going to say.
And, you know, that's more European, I think, that type of thinking. But when we offered it in the fall, we had a waiting list for the class that filled up and had a waiting list. And Mankato has beautiful parks and trails and everything. And so we had it kind of at a nature park trail area, and there was like a covered shelter, you know, with picnic tables there. And really one of the best days was when it was raining. Our early childhood teacher got really smart. She went on what can kids do in the rain, and she got pie tins, and we held them under where the rain was coming off the shelter, and they all made different sounds, and it was like music. And we did chalk on the floor, and then what happens when water, what happened to the drawings, the chalk drawings, and it was just so, and we were totally wet, but we were dressed, and then the staff brought towels so that the kids could get into their car without getting the car seat all wet. But after it happened, the staff, all of us just looked at each other and said that was probably the most fun class we've ever done. And it would have been so easy to say, well, it's raining.
Right.
We're going to meet at the center. And yet the experiences, the kids just loved it. It was parents that were kind of, stick in the muds about it. And so we just decided as staff, we were going to have the right attitude about it and have fun. And that seemed to be contagious. Now the class was really strong in the fall. In the winter, we took a dive, and even in the spring, it came up a little bit, not quite as much. But we've already put down for fall, with our director said, let's do the fall nature, and we're changing it to family. So siblings up to 7 are welcome to come, and if they have little babies, they can carry them on their backs and meet at the park. And because I think, especially after all this quarantine, families are probably really going to welcome just getting out and being out more so maybe than. And then it's also, probably it feels safer to families. So we are going to offer that, I think. I don't know.
Yeah, I was actually going to say that because we've already been quarantined enough, that being outside might actually be a welcome way for the parents to not have to deal with the children inside. The children can be, and there are more adults there now to look up, help kind of manage the children. So maybe they'll, just because of that, and that's what children need, is like you guys all keep saying, and I've heard other PEs say this too, play. Play is a learning tool, and the best learning tool you guys have. So that kind of thing. So I think this is actually very, very, very.
And if anyone wants ideas, Tinker Garden, are you familiar with that, Tinker Garden? They have a whole nature outdoor curriculum and lesson plans, parent education articles, just everything. They even had, like, when in the winter, they have how to dress for different temperatures and at what temperatures are unsafe, and wind chills and little charts and everything. But one thing I know that my early childhood teacher did is she just went in and got paint chips in like October of greens and yellows and oranges. And she gave every family paint chips, and they were to find matching colors.
Yeah.
It was awesome. It was awesome. They're running after some leaves, and then they were laying them on the paint chips and figuring them out. And then we made little charts, like greens and oranges and yellows, and everybody on these charts laid their things at the end. The little ones put their things. Very, very simple, easy to do, and yet really fun for the kids. I mean, there's so many things you can do, and it's not a lot of work, really.
No. And our teacher who did the nature class this last semester, our class was starting in January. And so she wrote her lesson plans, not like week 1, week 2, week 3. She wrote them, if the weather's like this is lesson. The weather's like this. So each lesson plan was just based on the weather, not on the week. And I thought, oh, smart. Yeah.
That is smart.
So smart and creative. So,
yeah.
Excellent. I think Susan just said that I think she wants us to convene back to the large group. Okay. And I will make sure to save this chat, and I will make sure to save our recording. And this was awesome. I hope you all enjoyed the discussion. I enjoyed listening to it. And hopefully, all of this will be very helpful for you guys to shape up really concrete plans, which are hopeful plans, I think. Very hopeful from the standpoint of.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. Do you know how
No,
to
go
get
ahead.
back to our other meeting?
Yes, what you need to do is say leave room. It's at the right-hand side. So
Yes.
you guys can go ahead and do that. I